All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearing begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Crystal. Good evening, everybody. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's hearing. That's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify this evening. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there's no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not placed on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago, with staff, applicant, and neighborhood association presentations and then public testimony. Thank you. Thank you for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer.
Here.
Squires.
Here.
Blanchard. Moore. Here. Gillespie. Benbrock.
Here.
Danley.
Here.
Mooney.
Here.
Seha.
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, relatively short agenda this evening. We do have a few deferrals that we're going to take up first. Then we'll move on to consent items and then the main hearing. Up first, our first item hoping for deferral is item number 1. This is CUP 2352 Yesco at 3668 North Harbor Lane. This is a conditional use permit for an electronic message display and freestanding sign associated with an existing medical office in an R2D zone. The applicant is requesting deferral to January 8th, 2024. Excuse me. Is there anybody in attendance tonight hoping to testify on this item and you cannot attend the meeting on January 8th of next year? Okay, very good. Sorry, 1 second. With that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for this item since it's going to be deferred to a specific date.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
make a motion that item number 1, CUP 23-52, conditional use permit for an electronic message display located at 3668 North Harbor Lane, be deferred to the January 8th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Second.
Great, thank you. I have a motion to defer by Commissioner Danley and a second by Commissioner Squires. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer.
Here, yes.
Squires.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Benbrock.
Aye.
Danley.
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
Seha.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then item number 5 this evening is CAR 23-20 and CUP 2357 Lombard Conrad Architects at 902 North 8th Street. This is a modification to a development agreement to change allowed uses and site design on 0.81 acres in an ROHD DA zone with historic design review. And also a CUP for a conditional use permit for a parking reduction and height exception on 0.65 acres in an RO HDDA zone. This applicant is hoping to defer this item to February 5th of 2024. Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to testify on this item? Then you cannot attend the meeting on February 5th. I know, Mr. Hagan, you signed up. Is that okay to? Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay, excellent. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for deferral of this item.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
I move that item number 5, CAR 23-20, a modification to a DA located at 902 North 8th Street, and CUP 23-57, a conditional use permit for a parking reduction and height exception located at the same address, be deferred to the February 5th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Second.
Very good. Thank you. I have a motion to defer by Commissioner Danley with a second by Commissioner Squires. Any further discussion? Very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Finfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, very good. We'll go ahead then. That takes care of our deferrals for the evening. Go ahead and build our consent agenda. First items there, without objection, I'll place our meeting minutes and work session meeting minutes from November 6th of 2023 on consent. Likewise, with item A, without objection, I'd like to place this item on consent. This is a time extension. It's PUD 19-11 and CFH 19-13 JO Holdings LLC at 3600 West Americana Terrace. This is a 2-year time extension for a conditional use permit for residential plan development comprised of 5 structures and 304 dwelling units on 7.4 acres in a C3D zone. So again, without objection, I'm going to place item A also on the consent agenda. See, item number 2, CUP 23-58, Lytle signs? Lytle signs? Lytle? 518 North 8th Street, conditional use permit for an electronic message display monument sign associated with an existing religious institution on 0.83 acres in an LOD zone. Is the applicant present tonight? Looks like the applicant's online.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Good evening, and
Hi there. Yes.
Hi
hello.
there. My name is Tom Mikesell with Lytle Signs. I reside at 8745 West Steinbrook, Boise, Idaho, 83704.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mikesell. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes, we are.
Okay, very good. And is there anybody hoping to testify in opposition of this item tonight? Mr. Hagan, would you like to testify on this item? Okay, we're going to go ahead and hear item 2 then. So Mr. Mikesell, you can just sit tight for 1 minute. We'll wrap up our consent agenda and then come back around to you. Okay. Carrying on with consent. Item number 3 is CUP 23-60 Dean Brigham. Address is 2712 North 36th Street. This is a conditional use permit to construct an accessory structure in front of the primary structure on 0.35 acres in R1C zone. And is the applicant present? Great. Hi there. And are you guys in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay. Let the record show the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. Is there anyone hoping to testify in opposition to this item tonight? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and place item 3 on the consent agenda. Up next is item number 4, CFH 23-93, the City of Boise Parks and Recreation Department. Address is 960 North Veterans Memorial Parkway. This is a river system permit to repair approximately 200 lineal feet of erosion along the bank of the Boise River within Veterans Memorial Park on 9.76 acres in an A1 zone. And the applicant's present. Great. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Very good. Let the record show applicants present and in agreement with the staff report. And is there anyone hoping to testify in opposition to this project? Very good. We'll place item 4 on the consent agenda. And with that, I will entertain a motion regarding consent.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Danley.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda consisting of the following items. The commission meeting minutes from November 6th, the work session meeting minutes from November 6th. Item A, PUD 19-11, JO Holdings LLC, a time extension located at 3600 West Americana. Item number 3, CUP 23-60, Dean Brigham, a conditional use permit application located at 2712 North 36th Street. And item number 4, CFH 23-93, the City of Boise Parks and Rec Department, river system permit located at 960 North Veterans Memorial Parkway, each with their respective terms and conditions in their staff reports.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion to approve consent by Commissioner Danley and a second by Commissioner Squires. Any discussion on consent? Very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Finfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Good luck with your projects. And we will return back to the top of our agenda to hear item number 2, and then we will follow that with item number 6 tonight, and that will do it for our agenda. So item number 2, again, is CUP 23-58, again, Lidl signs at 518 North 8th Street. We are going to hear from Matt Dennis with staff first, I believe.
Good evening, Mr. Chair
Good evening.
and members of the commission. The item before you is a conditional use permit requesting the installation of electronic message display, or an EMD, to be constructed atop a proposed freestanding monument sign located at 518 North 8th Street on 0.83 acres in an LO limited office with design review zone. The installation of the EMD is associated with the existing religious institution on the property. EMDs are allowed within office zones only through a conditional use permit. The proposed location of the EMD is within an existing landscaped area adjacent to and east from the intersection of State Street and 8th Street. All dimensional standards required for EMDs have been met by the proposal. The planning team finds the proposed EMD to comply with the comprehensive plan and that its use and location are appropriate and compatible to other uses in the vicinity. Commenting agencies have confirmed that the proposal will not place an undue burden on public services, nor will it adversely affect other property in the vicinity. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval.
Okay, great. Thank you. And next we'll hear from the applicant.
Yes, thank you. We're in agreement with the conditions and we'd like to move forward and build a sign for the cathedral.
Okay, great. Mr. Mikesell, would you mind giving us your name and address for the record one more time, just for the folks at home?
Tom Mikesell with Lidl Signs, 8745 West Steinbrook Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83704.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And next we'll hear from Mr. Hagan. You're going to testify now as part of the NINA? Yep. Okay. Come on up, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Eric Hagan, North End Neighborhood Association President. I reside at 809 North 18th Street in Boise. The design of the sign is nice. We like it. We don't really have any opposition to the signs. We just have some concerns and some considerations we'd like to have considered. ACHD is in the midst of planning a redesign to State Street along that corridor. In light of recent accidents and deaths that have happened in that corridor, we have concern about distracting drivers, and we'd like to see the design take into account what ACHD might be doing. We haven't seen it. We don't know. Is the curb going to be pushed back? Is the right of way going to change? Obviously, the property line won't change, but how will that affect the location of the sign and such? There was recently also a sign installed on Fort Street at the Veterans that after installation was extremely bright to the neighborhood. In that case, they were right across the street from residential. And we just want to make sure that the same thing is going to be considered here. It looks like from the documentation that Lytle Science has taken that into consideration, but it would just be nice to get that added in there. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring this back before any questions. Sorry, I'm just talking over here. Mike's not on. Just rambling away. Thank you, Mr. Hagan. We'll go ahead and open this up for any questions then by the commission to the applicant or to staff or to Mr. Hagan.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Daly.
I just my question would be to Mr. Hagan real quick. Are you asking us to essentially, I don't know, pause or somehow what I'm trying to understand the ask, given that we don't know what is going to come, nor when we know what will come from ACHD. Are you asking about a site triangle thing, or is it the messaging size of it? What exactly is your ask?
The main concern is how it will impact traffic. Will it distract drivers? Has ACHD reviewed this and considered that? I know ACHD is involved in building permit reviews, but have they reviewed this one? I haven't seen any documentation to that. Again, like I said, not knowing exactly what ACHD has planned in there, I do have some ideas of what they're trying to do and make it more pedestrian friendly, but I don't know how that affects the vision triangle. Ideally, it would be great to see something like that. So I guess we'd be asking for a deferment on it. There's another sign at the church just down the street at 9th Street that is being proposed in upcoming planning and zoning hearings. In that case, they're asking for variances for height and whatnot, but it would be the same consideration there. Since there's been accidents along this stretch of State Street in the past year, one resulting in a death, we're just concerned, highly attuned to the fact of pedestrian safety. And we just want to make sure drivers are not distracted any more than they already are.
Thank you.
So Matt, I guess a couple questions for you then to follow up on Mr. Hagan's questions. You know, in our packet, we have the proposed location of a sign. Now it's not a survey drawing. It's not exactly pinpointing, but it looking at page 23 of our packet, it shows a 40-foot clear vision triangle and the sign clearly located within the property boundaries of the church. Anything further from Mr. Hagan's questions and anything you may be aware of with ACHD regarding this intersection and any concerns about this application?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I wouldn't say there's concerns about the proposed location and how the right-of-way improvements would affect that, mainly just because the Ada County Highway District was transmitted as they typically are. The reason that they did not submit agency comments, or typically why they don't submit agency comments on CUPs, especially CUPs for something as minor as a electronic message display, is it doesn't constitute a change of use, and therefore it wouldn't alter the generation of traffic trips. So that's typically why a CUP, a hearing level item like this would not receive those agency comments.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you for that. And then I guess to the applicant, Mr. Mikesell, can you speak to the concerns Mr. Hagan brought up about the brightness of the sign and can you give us a little more input there and your thoughts on how the sign is designed and
Yeah, the sign is designed to use minimal light. It's self-adjusting for the ambient light around and dims during the day and brightens a little bit at the night. And then all that's needed, it's not talking to the church, the number of messages per day is going to be limited. They just want to get information out about services and any special events that they may be having during that particular time span. But the sign is automatically adjusted by brightness and dimness and can be adjusted even further if need be.
okay. All right, very good. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, John, please.
So I got a question for the staff. So ACHD didn't give us any feedback, but Mr. Hagan brings up a good point about pedestrian and probably in future applications, bicyclist safety regarding distracted motorists. Obviously, they're worried about throughput and motor vehicle traffic primarily. Who on the city staff is going to makes those decisions about clear vision triangles and distracted drivers? I mean, I think ACHD would probably be washing their hands of that part of our applications and educating us so that we can make a quality decision.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I would say that pedestrian safety and comfort are reviewed on a case-to-case basis. And so with each different application, there's certain criteria that needs to be met. And as long as that criteria is being met, as far as setbacks go, there's also requirements within code that limit the brightness and time at which each image can be shown for. So I would say on a case-to-case basis and within each application review, pedestrian comfort and safety and its relationship with automobile travel is reviewed, considered, and on a case-to-case basis in that way. Yeah.
Mr. Chair. So what I'm hearing you say, so basically city planning staff has that responsibility to basically give us a report that gives us a ruling on what we think about motorist distraction or whatever.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yes, that's correct. The city does work with ACHD and kind of come to that common ground based on their agency comments and then how the proposal complies with code, kind of where those two interact. We work with each other to create the safest environment for all modes of travel.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Matt, is it fair to say then, given Mr. Mikesell's comments about the sign being adjustable after the fact and the light levels and whatnot, certainly within the city's purview that should there be an accident, the city could reevaluate the sign and its brightness. And if that was a factor, and then at some point in the future, we could dictate to the applicant to reduce the brightness of that sign if we felt that it's necessary. Is that
Mr.
fair?
Chair, members of the commission, I'd say that that's a fair assessment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions? All right, very good. Thanks, everybody. I'll go ahead and just check in to see if there's anybody else who'd like to testify on this item. I'm just gonna go real quick. I didn't see Mr. Mikesell's hand was up online. So I'm gonna close public testimony and go back to the applicant real quick. Mr. Mikesell, I just saw your hand is up. Did you have any further comment?
No, I'm in complete agreement with the process to date, and we will do as good as citizens and members of the cathedral, whatever's necessary to help reduce and create a better, safe environment.
Okay, very good. Can we take those comments then as your rebuttal this evening? Since we had no testimony to rebut.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. So at this point, I'll go ahead and close the public testimony and the hearing and open this up or entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney.
I recommend we approve CUP 2358 with all the terms and conditions in the staff report.
Great. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any further discussion?
No, Mr. Chair, I think these questions kind of covered my concerns and Matt answered them.
Okay, very good. Jennifer, you good? Yeah.
Geez, I'm in agreement with the staff report. I mean, our city code lists some pretty stringent regulations on, what kind of images can be displayed, the brightness levels, all that good stuff. So I think, and the willingness of the applicant to kind of work with the city as needed. I'm comfortable with this application and appreciate the comments.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other discussion? All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Again, this is CUP 2358. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Mooney and a second by Commissioner Moore. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Finbrook,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
Seha.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Last but certainly not least tonight is item number 6. This is CUP 23-54, the Architect's Office PLLC at 2900 North Cole Road. This is a conditional use permit for a general exception and conditional use modification to apply the majority LOD zone to an overall subject property and add 9 multifamily units to an existing 28 unit residential planned development on 2.14 acres in an LOD and R1C zone. First, we're going to hear from staff, Mr. David Mosier, and then we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
members of the commission. The item before you tonight is a conditional use permit for a general exception to apply the majority LO zone to the entire site and a modification to add 9 dwelling units to an existing multifamily development. This includes expanding the existing apartment facility onto the adjacent parcel to the south and construct a 3-story 9-unit building with an associated parking lot. The subject property in total is 2.14 acres located at 2900 North Cole Road in an LOD and R1C zone. And as you can see from the aerial photograph, the properties adjacent to the site and along Cole Road are comprised of a mix of multifamily, residential, church, offices, and commercial uses, which will create a transition to from Cole Road onto the adjacent residential neighborhood. The original apartment facility was approved back in 2002 for 24 dwelling units and then expanded to 28 dwelling units in 2007. The applicant is proposing a general exception to apply the LO zone standards to the R1C portion of the site. The general exception complies with all the required findings of the development code. In addition, the applicant proposes to construct a 3-story 9-unit apartment building with an associated parking lot. The site design provides an additional vehicle access onto Cole Road, and the new parking lot and service drive will connect into the existing apartment complex. The new building is located interior to the development and about 60 feet from the south and east perimeter boundaries. It was also located or is also separated from these perimeter boundaries by a parking lot, carports, and a 12-foot wide landscape buffer. This slide shows the landscape plan and building elevation. As you can see from the landscape plan, the perimeter boundaries is screened with a tree planted every 40 feet and a solid fence, 6 foot high. In addition, a recommended conditional approval requires the applicant work with the design review or planners to improve the street facing facade with additional fenestration or windows and to enhance the door facing the street. The planning team did receive public comment in opposition to the project. The neighbors' concerns involve 3 main points: traffic, privacy issues, and compatibility with the surrounding area. To address these concerns, I would note that the project is compatible and consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, which is comprised of single-family homes, multifamily houses, and commercial uses along Cole Road. Higher density residential is anticipated along Cole Road since it's an arterial roadway with public transit. The project will alleviate any privacy concerns since it is screened from the adjacent properties with a 6-foot fence, and there is a 12-foot wide landscape buffer surrounding the perimeter boundaries, which contain trees. The building was also set back 60 feet from the side and rear property lines. And finally, the Highway District, ACHD, commented that there is traffic capacity along Cole Road to support the 9 additional units. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of CUP 2354 since it complies with all the required findings. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. Okay, next we have the applicant.
Chairman Schaefer and members of the commission, my name is Matt Reese. I'm the architect with the Architect's Office. And my address is 499 Main Street, Boise, Idaho. So this project the original project was done in 2003, about just almost exactly 20 years ago. And we are kind of a mid-block location on Cole Road, and Cole Road is a 4-lane arterial road. Pretty busy street. Historically, there was single-family residences on that, and over time, this whole section of this street on this block has slowly been changed to allow for more commercial and more higher density. When Cole got expanded to be a 4-lane road, that made it kind of a harsh road. And so the office commercial use, the churches, and the multifamily actually acts as a little bit better buffer to the single family residences. I am very sympathetic to the single family residences that are on there that are adjacent to this property and in this area. Having a road become an arterial road is not necessarily pleasant. So we're tasked with, on the one hand, we want people that want more density. They look at this lot and this potential zoning, the LOD, accommodating up to 40 units per acre. On the other hand, we have people that, just want it to remain as single family residences and 1 unit per half acre or something like that. So we try to work this compromise and try to get the density. We're trying to match the density that's to our existing project, and we've done that. We're just under 20 units per acre. We fight with the city now, wants less parking, but the tenants want more parking, and rightfully so. The neighbors have concerns that parking is going to be an issue. So we strive to get 2 parking spots per unit. We think we find that 1.75 parking stalls for a 2-bedroom unit is what is needed. Since we don't have off-street parking and we don't want to be burdened on the neighborhood, we feel compelled to provide that extra parking on site. So we've done that. When it came to siting the building, it is placed intentionally to be the furthest away from the single-family houses. It is 60 feet off the rear and 60 feet off the side to the single-family residence that's to our south. We put the parking lot that is adjacent to them, but we provide the 12 feet of landscape there, and that is a nicer buffer than, let's say, 5 feet. 10 feet allows for a full-size tree and better landscaping that will go above the fence height instead of just bushes. To get the density, it is a challenging site because just limited area. So we opted to go 3 stories, but we intentionally lowered the slope of the roof. If you go back to, I don't know if you can put up the site plan. The footprint on our building is significantly shallower than to the buildings that are to the north. And so the buildings to the north have quite a bit. They have a steeper roof slope and big gabled ends on the side of the building. So they do look a lot more prominent. To minimize the massing of this building, the roof slope was taken down and the gabled ends were switched to hip roofs just to try to scale down the massing. There was the other drawing that shows the landscaping with the building elevations. I've dotted off to the side the existing buildings that are off to the side. So our building will be about 9 feet higher than the existing 2-story building there. So I feel like we've offered a kind of a good compromise, trying to get the density higher, but it's not as high as some people would like it. We've upped the parking because we feel that's that's what's needed on this site. And I think we've maximized the setbacks that we can to the adjacent neighbors.
Hmm.
So with that, I will can answer any questions, or we can.
We'll have you back up in a minute. We're just going to do a little bit of business first.
Okay.
Yeah, but stick around if you don't mind, please. And thank you.
Okay.
We will check in to see if we have anyone from the Winstead Park Neighborhood Association present. I don't believe that we do. So with that, we'll go ahead and open this up for questions by the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daly. Yeah.
quick question of staff. David, I'm just curious, there's a good fair amount of commercial activity on the opposite side of Cole. And those properties are near the property versus the questions, the applicant's property versus all the way up towards Ustick. I'm curious if there was any discussion of a pedestrian hybrid location, or pedestrian hybrid beacon location to cross the street from this application to get to their side.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that was not mentioned within the ACHD commission. We did look at the locate or the distance from the next or to the bus stop on the other side. It is about a quarter mile. So it is, they would have to walk down to Ustick and then cross back up, or walk to Northview and then back. But there was no specific discussion about adding a pedestrian hybrid beacon across at this location.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Booten.
got a question for the applicant, Mr. Reese. So the extra parking beyond code requirements is probably the most interesting thing for me about your application. Could you talk us through what that dynamic looks like from your perspective regarding the land cost, the surface parking cost, i.e. we're storing a vehicle instead of building housing. So that's what you've made that decision, and obviously that kind of rubs against the grain of the city of trying to get into a higher density and less motor vehicle centric. So just talk us through your calculation on that.
Chairman and members of the commission, we do quite a fair amount of multifamily projects and work with a wide variety of clients. And that's always one of the topics of discussion is parking and what is needed and just getting feedback from the management companies. And we have direct feedback from this project of how much it is parked. Their parking is full. And the buildings that are to the north are all 2-bedroom units. We're kind of a unique situation in that we don't have any street parking that is right adjacent to our lot. And so therefore, if we were to underpark this project, we're going to get tenants that are going to want to park in the church parking lot across the street, or the commercial properties that are on down the street, or we'll try to sneak a car into the residential neighborhood. And so we would rather be just a little bit overparked than underparked. And so that's why we feel that the 2 stalls per unit will comfortably satisfy this development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess, Mr. Reese, before you go, do you happen to know, are you 2 stalls per unit on the existing buildings?
I believe so.
Okay.
I don't have that calculation right in front of me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're pretty close to that.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Moore.
I think this is maybe a question for you, Mr. Reese. So there's some back and forth in the staff report about bike parking, and it wasn't extremely clear where it was settled. Was it settled on that kind of bottom right corner under the, looks like under the carport? That's kind of where all the bike parking is settled?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had graphically shown 7 stalls. We can fit 9 in there. And so that's just not going to be an issue. And we have other areas on the site that has that potential.
So, thank you.
That was about the only real condition in the staff report. I assume you're in agreement with the staff report.
I
Was there any
am.
other concerns on
There
your
was,
side?
I forgot to mention that, that we purposely styled this building with what was there previous, just to give it continuity, make it feel like it's the same project. So we copied some of the same details of the bay windows and things like that. There was a comment on staff project that said to work with design review on where the location of an entry door should be. And we will work with design review where we feel pretty strongly that Cole Road, because it's the 4-lane road, there's no parking on the road. It's a pretty harsh road. And we want a little thicker landscaping as a buffer in that zone. And so we sort of like the protected entry that we have on the units. But I see that as more of a design review thing that we will work on next step in design review if we get to that next step.
Okay, very good. I mean, yes, David, since you're up, any concerns there on that approach?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, staff is satisfied with that approach.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Last call for questions. All right, very good. Go ahead and open up the public testimony on this item. We had a few folks sign up ahead of time. I have Lily Jensen and then Richard Payne have signed up. Ms. Jensen, if you want to come on up to the podium here, you can testify. When you get up here, you can start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to testify. You can pull that mic down so we can hear you there. And then we'll have a timer running right here on the big wall, so you can see how much time you have. for your testimony.
Okay. My name's Lily Jensen. I live at 7314 West Settlers Drive. The area we're talking about, I could probably see from my back window. It's kind of like in my backyard, between Cole and my backyard. But this neighborhood has been there 30 to 40 years and plus. And I've known of it for a long time, although we recently just moved there. So it's a single family neighborhood intended for generations to enjoy, surrounded by mature parks and near schools and grocery stores. The library's right across the street from this area. And it's my feeling and belief that it will adversely affect the area to make it more densely populated. It will change the look and the feel and the feeling of a nurturing, safe place to live. With home ownership, zoning was meant to protect the integrity of the community. Property values and taxes will be affected, and there will be privacy issues and noise. Safety will become a concern. And of course, we all already know of the congestion and difficulty getting on Cole Road already. So that's what I have to say, and I hope you'll please consider it. It's kind of sad for me to have this happening in my backyard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jensen. And Mr. Payne?
My name is Richard Payne. I live at 2809 North Grandee Street, Boise. And first thing I'd like to point out is I think this flyer is misleading because the address is 2900 North Cole Road. The farmhouse that they're going to tear down is 2816 North Cole Road. So that's a little bit misleading. So I have lived in the house directly to the south of this property for 40 years. So I have like a spiel here. Imagine that I purchase your next door neighbor's house, tear it down and construct a 3-story building 45 feet tall overlooking your backyard. The parking and garage, garbage dumpsters will be along your backyard fence. The garbage and recycling dumpsters will be about 30 feet from your bedroom windows. Unless you have a very early riser, you will be wakened when they empty the trash and recycling, about 5 or 6 in the morning. This occurs at the existing apartment. You won't have any privacy in your backyard because of the height of the units. You won't be able to stargaze in your backyard because of the light pollution from the parking and other complex lighting. Your dog will get upset when people arrive and leave because of the parking along your fence. This will be my world if this project proceeds. If this is the vision for Boise, I think it's a sad story. I believe this development will decrease the value of my home, and I'm working with an appraiser to validate this assumption. As an alternative, I would propose constructing a single level complex with less invasive parking and trash facilities, or better yet, somehow preserve the 100-year-old home that's existing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to testify this evening? Yeah, please come up to the podium just so we have it on the mic and on the record. Start with your name and address, please.
My name is Adam Payne. I live at 2809 Grand East Street. This neighborhood was kind of where I was born and raised, and it was always a single level home neighborhood. There's maybe 1 or 2 houses in the entire neighborhood that are 2 stories tall. When they were speaking of multiple projects on that road, Cole, where there are current apartment complexes, there's not multiple complexes there. There is one giant complex that they have installed, and it seems to me as the homes continue to go for sale on Cole Road, they will continue to be purchased, and their project will continue along the line until Cole Road is fully filled with 3-story buildings. And right now in my backyard, I often have someone overlooking into my yard through their window. And, you know, that's kind of it's the whole thing about having a home and having that privacy, is that you know, you don't have to look up at someone else staring down into your yard. And I think the direction of where it's going is hard for a lot of people who are against the upzoning of Boise and what's continuing in our neighborhoods that have been around for a long time, and in places that are where the roads are meant for single level, 2-level homes, not apartment complexes on every corner of every block. And that's what it's turning into. And that's all I have to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Last call. Anybody else want to testify? Okay. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then, and we'll go ahead and have the applicant back up for a quick rebuttal.
Chairman and members of the commission, I know these are tough things to review because it does affect real people. The people that live in the existing apartment complex, they're residents too. And so things like noise, crime, or congestion and all that, it affects them as well. I think if we turn back time 50 years, 75 years, how would you master plan Cole Road? It's pretty obvious that it's a it's on the 1 mile arterial grid. And so from the get-go, better planning would have accommodated better buffer zones, commercial on the arterial with multifamily acting as the buffer to the single family. And so in areas like this, I think you just see that that's just the market and the growth of how the properties that were once single family on Cole Road, you know, as things get redeveloped, it just, because of its location and the infrastructure that's there, that we want higher density on the road. And I hate to use the word high density because I think this project is kind of mid-density level. I forgot what I was gonna, my next point. Again, we did our best to try to find the compromises with density and parking and creating the 60-foot setbacks from the adjacent neighbors from the building. And I think this is the right fit for this neighborhood and at this location, and it matches the existing development that is in the area.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is item 6, CUP 23-54.
So, Mr. Chair, I
Commissioner
have a
Seah.
question, and I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question at this point.
Yeah,
but,
go ahead.
You know, one of the commenters mentioned trash and trash pickup, and I was looking at the site plan,
Mhm.
and I'm just wondering if it would be feasible to move the trash location further to the north.
So that's certainly something we can absolutely discuss.
Okay.
And depending on, any motion that's made, we can certainly make that a condition of approval. Now, the process, as the applicant alluded to, the next step in their process is design review. So trash enclosure, in this specific instance, the trash enclosure location is certainly something that could be adjusted as part of the design review submittal. So that's absolutely something we can talk about. Typical process for us is we get a motion on the table and then we can work out have the discussion, right, about all of our concerns on the application. So, yeah. Okay. Or it's up to the commission. If we want to have further discussion, we can certainly do that too. I mean, it's pretty common that we have a motion on the table though, to begin discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
make a motion.
Okay.
So I move that we approve CUP 23-54 with all the terms and conditions as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion to approve with a second. Jennifer, you want to start with some discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I think in reference to the comments, I think there's some just kind of maybe confusion or just kind of mix up with what we're seeing as the approved, or not approved, as the submitted materials. I think one of the comments was the address is misleading. That's true. One of the conditions is to record a record of survey with the parcel consolidation, so that will kind of fix that address issue. There was a comment that it was 45 feet tall. The record drawings are showing 35.5 feet tall to the top of the roof. That's to the very peak of the roof. It's obviously sloped past that, so it'll be a little bit shorter than that. It's actually just a hair under 30 to the eve, it looks like. And then light pollution, Boise has some pretty standard ordinances to kind of help prevent that. Light shielding and downward facing lights and things like that. I think the density is similar to kind of what's there already. Certainly, I mean, it's not infeasible that you could see higher density there, honestly, on an arterial like that. It's connecting to an existing road, you're not creating a whole new development. It's part of another development set back from the property lines. I think there's been a lot of thought put into the site planning, its impact, vegetation along those property lines, and heavy vegetation right at that trash enclosure too. With all those items, I think it complies with the other requirements. I move to approve it.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Chris.
I'll be in support of the motion and wanted to add a few things to the record here. The question of this is it the conditional use permit? And as a conditional use permit, we have to ask ourselves, has the potential, any potential harm been mitigated? That's the question that we have to ask. And in my opinion, seeing the pretty fair amount of distance between this building and the setback and the landscaping that's being added, that's a mitigation that we don't see very often to the extent that is in place in this application. So I would be inclined to say yes, the application and therefore this conditional use permit, that portion of it has been satisfied. Further, I would say that this particular parcel is on Cole Road, a section line arterial roadway central to our city. This is 0.20, a fifth of a mile from the intersection with Ustick, where we have a large commercial space, many buildings and uses there. And right across the street is a grocery store. In addition to one of our branch libraries, all of those things are within about a 5-minute walk of this space. So for me, the parking element, the density, I don't have any problem with that. The only hiccup I have is crossing the street. Because if I look at the aerials, I see a road called Settlers. And Settlers is a mighty fine alternative to both Ustick and or to Fairview, and connects to a number of parks and so forth that allow you to get around without having to go onto the arterial. The question is, do we put a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which in my opinion would be the right treatment on a 5-lane road, onto the applicant? That's where it gets tricky for me, because I know the cost of that tool and it's not cheap, but I do think it's necessary. I don't think, however, that I'm prepared to make that a condition of approval. However, I do think that our city, ACHD, and the applicant somehow, some way ought to figure this out, because there's going to be crossing demand from the residents of this space to the other side of that street, because they don't want to go up to Ustick. That's a very challenging intersection to cross as a pedestrian, right? And so I think that that's a natural, it's going to happen. But I hope that we can figure that out as we move this application forward. But otherwise, I'm in favor of the application as is proposed.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any other comments or discussion?
Mr. Chair.
John, please.
Yeah, I agree with the applicant, Mr. Rees, about the time clock. And if we could go back a few decades, Cole Road was a rural road and it's not anymore. And unfortunately, that's the hard part for the existing residents. And we wouldn't have likely have zoned that rural R1C like it is if we'd have thought about it years ago. And we'd had the buffers that Mr. Rees talked about. So that's really the hard part for me and the testimony that we heard tonight. I do agree with Commissioner Danley that the adverse impacts are mitigated by the design that the applicant put forward, moving the buildings and all the other site amenities that's taken into account. I am also concerned about the Cole crossing, especially, but I don't think, since it hasn't been a problem thus far, I think with Commissioner Danley that this is not a place for us to take it on, unfortunately. A couple of comments that stuck in my craw, though, is that these are the people that live there now, and the people that will live there are our neighbors. And comments like sneak a car into the neighborhood, I think, is inappropriate, because those are public roads. They're not sneaking onto anything. Those roads are owned by all of us, and they're owned by the new neighbors as well as the old neighbors. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, John. Any other thoughts over here? No? Okay. So Esther, getting back to your question about the trash enclosure, we can, like, as I mentioned, the next step here in the process is design review, and there was some concern brought up, about the location of the trash enclosure in this application. I think we can discuss it here. We could put additional conditions on the application if you would like to have the applicant sort of reevaluate their options with the trash enclosure. The hard part is there's some limitations with where you can place the trash enclosure, because you have requirements for public services to access the trash enclosure. So it can be kind of a challenge. I understand the concerns, but I think that the applicant's done what they can to mitigate, as best they can, where that is located. So, certainly in your court, if you want to discuss it further, we can do that. The lighting was also brought up regarding the site. And I agree with Commissioner Moore that, code addresses site lighting. There's requirements for that. But it's really our purview to put additional conditions on an application if we feel like it's warranted, right? So those are just some food for thought about where we are in the process.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up for consideration, but I'm in support of staff's recommendation.
Okay.
So that was just something that, in hearing the comment, I thought, okay, well, if there's an opportunity to assess this and see if it can be moved slightly to the north, why wouldn't we look at that?
Yeah, we understand that, sir. So we can't take any more public testimony at this point. So yeah, gotcha.
So I think I'm okay at this point. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
great. All right. Unless there's any other comments, I'll wrap it up. I agree with the comments. I understand the concerns, and I understand the growth is challenging. I agree with comments, though, that I think the applicant's done a nice job with the site design and getting this to fit and to find that balance, with where the building's located, giving us a bigger landscape buffer than code dictates, and doing, I think, the right things to get this to blend into the site that we have here. So I'll be supporting the motion. I think as the design goes through design review and you get through that next layer of detail, I think that doing everything you can is to provide as much landscape as possible in that landscape buffer, taller shrubs, that sort of thing would be beneficial for, for the neighborhood as well. So with all that said, though, I'm in support of the motion that we have here. So again, we have a motion to approve CUP 23-54. The motion was by Commissioner Moore with a second by Commissioner Danley. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Squires,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Pinfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
Seha,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.